Welcome back to The Educational Currency. I'm Chris Kaladakis from Maximum Education.
I'm Robert Namoski from Ultimate Jiu-Jitsu and the Coaching College.
And today we're going to be talking about post-school pathways, potential careers that students might be wanting to pick when leaving school at the end of year 12. And look, this particular topic as well, we're kind of discussing because we actually are at that time of year where students are finishing up at school. They've been doing their subjects in year 11 and 12, and they very often come, in my scenario, to the leader of wellbeing and, have discussions that matter. But pretty much any teacher of senior student often ends up having these discussions, especially when they're passionate in your subject, Rob?
Oh, absolutely. It's a question of they've spent 13 years of their life in an education institution, and now you're an adult. Welcome to the real world. You're going to have to make some real life decisions and things that, okay, what do you want to do with yourself? What are your interests? And this ATAR that you've got, well, it's an indication of where you're going to begin to study and where you're going to begin.
That's it. And so, look, coming right off it, like if we look straight after year 12, we've got pretty much maybe three main options which ways you may go. We've got, you can go straight into work. You might be working part-time and you might think, I really like this. I might continue working this part-time job. And then that job might cover you in getting training for managerships and things like that. The second category we'll talk about is like TAFE and apprenticeships. With the way schools are set up now, you might already be doing an SBAT or some sort of a training apprenticeship within school, as well as vet subjects that have given you certifications that work towards you getting a trade and being qualified to do specific jobs. And then the third category that students may be looking at is then university. Okay, going to uni and then going on with a profession at one of the actual institutions that may be local or, through a variety of ways that they could address that. Is that the way you think about it too, Rob?
Absolutely. But the question is, okay, you ask yourself as a student, what do you want to do? Mm-hmm. What do you want to slowly, progressively get better at? Mm. And this is a very hard question. And usually with students, it's not so much the job or career, it's so much as, okay, what area of interest are you interested in?
Yeah.
So you can, from your area of interest, you can slowly narrow it down to an actual profession. But you have to have, okay, that little bit of an area of interest. Now, if it's work and school isn't for you, this educational institution, it just seemed to drag itself on, why would you go to another education institution and do exactly the same thing all over?
100%.
So maybe a job, working somewhere, furthering your skills, maturing as well, where it could be of benefit. But then on the other hand, students that I've been fortunate enough to tutor and to have at the school, they're quite academic. Mm. And then that in itself becomes a problem because, okay, you're used to all this study, you're used to getting these good results, but now what are you going to do? Mm. So it's a question of interest as well. And usually with the students that sit in front of me, in conversation, I like to see, what are you interested in?
Yeah.
And this is where things like university courses give you that option. For example, I want to be a dentist. I'm not sure if I'd like it or not. I'm not sure about medicine. There's medical science.
Yeah.
There's even, with the engineering profession, they have courses where first year engineering, you do not need to pick, where you can just do that first year engineering course and then decide later on your second and third year. Also with commerce as well, when you pick a university course that says economics, well, that is a commerce course that specializes in economics. You don't need to make that decision till second year. So you can narrow it down first with an interest in a field. And don't get me wrong, you're allowed to change that field. So you could go, I was just speaking to an ex-student recently. He was adamant on doing something in the medical field, but then as he was studying in his medical field, he realized he really liked the maths and engineering side. And now second year is going to transfer into engineering.
Yeah.
Which you can still change your mind. But the most important thing is to have first pick an area of interest. And with that area of interest, you come into a profession.
Yeah, I think you've actually hit the nail on the head straight away. The first thing that you do have to talk about is, what am I interested in? And that is in itself a conversation that you need to be having with teachers and with your parents and all that to really get to the core of it. What actually do I like doing and want to learn more about, especially, as you said, if you're going to go into that further education. And it's funny that you said that too about, you just had a discussion about that, because even if I look at my class this year, my computing class, my top student, obviously if he's my top student, he's doing very well in computing. But when I actually sit down and talk to him about what he wants to do and all that, and he does, toss up whether he wants to do computing or not, he is so passionate about physics. And it just comes through that he loves science, and it's almost like, I'd love to be saying, go for this scholarship and go for that. But I can also see within him, just by his demeanor when he speaks about the subject, science is his thing. And he has mentioned that he wants to look at a few areas in there, like astrology and things like that too. But yeah, you can almost see it when someone is passionate and interested.
Yeah, but then he can marry the science with computing.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Of course. And that brings us then to STEM fields, doesn't it?
That's right.
I'm the T, he's the M in STEM. Okay, but that's true. And it's STEM fields, that's a whole area that students, I will encourage, if you're listening right now, if you are passionate in any of those areas, definitely look towards them, because then there's also opportunities in those fields for scholarships, particularly universities too, because Australian industry, if we're going to get to industry 3.0, 4.0, what we're on the verge of and what Australia has plans for where their industry is going, they need people trained in those areas. So the universities are offering scholarships in those areas too. So that's a whole nother tangent. We'll revisit that later on. I will come back to it though. We'll continue on points to consider. So then we've touched on STEM. Second point I would say you should be considering is, what are your goals in a career? So you're going to think about, okay, which institution am I going to go to, or am I going to start working? Well, what do you want to be your goals? Is your long-term goal to be a CEO within an organization and be a business owner? Is your goal make a lot of money and be really happy? Okay, or is the goal going to be, you want to be in an area of service and support people? That's kind of the way it goes too.
Absolutely, because once you get that field that you're interested in, then it's a question of, okay, develop your skills. So whatever your long-term goals are, they do and will change.
Yeah.
Depending on your maturity, your circumstances, depends. Are you in an intimate relationship? Have you got kids, etc.? Or you may not be. That's good as well. Maybe that your passion could become that. But on the other hand, you slowly develop skills. So even at university and the first 10 years out of university, you are still learning your craft. Because at the end of the day, no one will take you seriously till you're about 35 anyway.
People still don't take me seriously.
I'm working on it. I think I've reached that point.
You're there. You're all right. You're the master.
It took me to 50. So you're about 10 years away, Chris. But so even then, you look at a doctor that's a specialist, he begins to learn at 35. And he's not proficient until he's at 45, 50. So always have that in mind. Just because you're coming out of university, you may have had really good marks. Teachers have praised you. You've done really well. Now you're going to begin to study something else. And remember the word, begin to study. This is what you need to really have in mind, that, you get the ATAR results. Okay. And I tell my students all the time, okay, we're going to begin. And I've seen it time and time again. Anyone who has that passion or has that interest in mind succeeds. And I can give you examples, people who have ATAR and TERs in their 70s that have done medicine, and I've had people get 98s that dropped out of uni that wasn't for them. So it's all just an indication of, okay, your life begins now. And the one thing I tell the students all the time, regardless of the mark, regardless of what you get, if you had a choice to begin any career path you choose, any career path, any profession, what would you pick?
Yeah. And you actually really hit on an interesting point there about the institute versus the career. Like if you are an academic, you're usually comfortable in those institutions, but then will you be comfortable once you actually enter into that career too? So that's actually a really good point that you highlighted just then. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, then we'll look at, we've got other podcast topics coming along when, maybe our next podcast topic, we'll dwell on that. We'll surprise you with it.
We'll surprise you. No spoilers, mate.
No spoilers, okay. But it is that at the end of the day, you're honing your skills in, you're becoming a professional, even though you may think of yourself as a professional. And what is a professional? A professional is someone that makes an income from doing that profession.
Yeah.
So that's the best way I describe as a professional. That doesn't mean, you've stopped learning. So back to with the career path, then you got to look at education versus employment.
Yeah.
Well, you can have the balance of both.
Yeah.
You can go uni or TAFE part-time.
Mm-hmm.
You can get a job in the real world that is within that profession and then study at night anyway.
Yeah.
For people who are, I want to do commerce and accounting, you'll be doing that after you graduate.
Yeah.
Because even you realize, besides engineering, which is a tough course, but with an engineering, you actually finish and you graduate as an engineer. When you finish a law degree, you're not a lawyer.
Yeah.
So you'll have to study at night anyway. You finish an accounting, you're not an accountant. You got to do your chartered, your CPA. So you have to study at night anyway. So education versus employment, it's a balance of the two. And you will be doing that regardless of your profession.
And that, once again, will depend on your own personal circumstance too. Because then some people, as we said, they're not into the study. So they might be of the mindset of, you know what, I will just go find a job. Or they might be in a state where they're in a financial situation. And in that state, you might be like, I got to work, I got to support myself, I got to support my family. So we fully recognize that too, of having influence there. And as said, that can also factor in that you work through your workplace's hierarchy to build your skills and then get more opportunities there.
Absolutely. And then eventually you may go back and study. I know I've had students in the past, just previously had a coffee with a student, I was probably a few months ago, where he actually had to go back and study at university.
Yeah.
His high school was okay. He was a little bit of a rebel student. And then he found his interest in surveying.
Yeah.
And became a very proficient, very passionate surveyor. And he was doing all the work, created his business, but then person with a university degree was signing off on his jobs.
Yeah.
So then he, later on in his late 20s, early 30s, went back to university to study to get that degree. So you can always upskill yourself and go back to study, especially as your career needs it.
Yeah. And that is almost a more authentic way. It was very natural. He went and worked, saw a job that he liked, and then kind of gravitated towards it. Then entered university as a mature age student. And sometimes that's the way, because we've mentioned before when just talking about subject selection or that, we can't expect young people to always know at the point of graduation what they want to do with their lives. So sometimes that working and getting into a particular field or dabbling across multiple jobs, and getting that experience is a great way to go, when you are uncertain, and then really then find your craft by doing it.
Absolutely. And you can change into different fields. But the most important thing is whatever field you're in, do it properly.
Yeah. And even if we just go back to our previous point there, that also shows how goals will change. Okay, we have short-term goals, and right now a student in high school's goal is just to pass HSC and hope to get a good ATAR or just to graduate and continue with their apprenticeship. But then once you do start working, and I think any student out there should be listening to this, your goals will evolve and change. Okay, based on your experiences, you may jump between tertiary platforms, okay, in order to learn and find what you like. And then even as we're going throughout our careers too, I remember my goal was always to become a leader of wellbeing, a year coordinator. And then I got there at 30. And so I'd already achieved my most major goal. But it's funny that a mentor said to me, as you start achieving goals, more opportunities then start coming around too. And you start getting pulled in different directions. And as we start getting more respected in our careers too, people start coming to you with opportunities as well. So goals will always change and bring it right back. As long as we're showing our passion and our interest, our first point too, those opportunities will come along as well.
100%. But again, be careful. I don't like this. Chop and change.
Yeah.
The problem with that is, well, whatever you've picked, see it through that year. Even if, let's say, accounting, I don't like this, and you just drop out. No, finish the year in accounting, pass everything you need to go through, grind it down, sit the lectures, sit the tutes, get a good mark in accounting, and then change into something else.
Yeah.
Where if you don't get that work ethic, changing into a different profession or a different field, all of a sudden you won't just switch on and be this productive person. So you need to have that tenacity and have that work ethic. And if it's hard, well, you need to get through things that are hard.
Yeah.
And this is where people can drift afloat for years.
Yeah.
And it's all good and sweet. You're 19, you're 20, you're 25. Yeah, you kind of need to do something. You may make that choice. But it begins to look bad at 30.
Yeah.
You've got to be careful.
You don't want to become a full-time student who's just racking up a big HECS debt. Something that's going to then inhibit you from, then putting down a deposit on a house and really impact on your income too. And you're right. You pick the pathway, grit it through, because it's funny, careers are a journey, and you'll be surprised. You'll do things in your life and you think, okay, I diverged from what I wanted to do and all that. But it's so funny how sometimes those past experiences, and they make you stronger. Okay, they make you stronger. Then suddenly you can recall back to that, and there was something that you learned back there, and that has enhanced your skill. Because you grit and did it, okay, it has benefited you. Sometimes there are natural pathways where you can change over and it works well. But yeah, no drastic changes. I agree with you 100%. Whatever you pick, grit it through.
Grind it down. Grind it down for that year. You picked it, see that year through, pass all your subjects, and then change.
Yeah.
You build that strong work ethic. And remember, it's a career. You're getting paid for a profession. Now, why are you getting paid for that profession? Because you wouldn't do it if you weren't getting paid.
Yeah.
So that's another thing to be careful of. It's not something that's going to bring you the uttermost joy and happiness.
Yeah. Yeah, not every part of your job you're going to love. Okay, obviously we're passionate teachers, but it doesn't mean we enjoy doing every single part of it. There is going to be times where we've got to grit and push through.
Lunchtime duty.
lunch, depending on the yard, that can be a punishment. Hours of marking and late nights and all that, and putting together reports. So there is always a downside, and that's different for obviously every educator too. And actually, just on that too, with the actual pathways as well, and where you jump to too, and how your past experiences can help. I find too in teaching, they're very good, aren't they? Thanks, Kate. Thank you very much. They're looking nice. But obviously some teachers come straight out of uni and then obviously start working. And that's great because then they build up a lot of experience in that realm. But then often a lot of expert teachers do another degree and they work in that industry. And then when they become teachers, they bring that industry experience with them. And then that just shows you, the previous degree, their journey and their experience in the workforce has enhanced them as an educator as well. So there's nothing wrong with changing those pathways. If you can just make sure you complete them all at their particular milestones.
Absolutely. Get used to doing things that are hard.
Yeah.
And that gives you, there's a sense of satisfaction after it's done.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be enjoyable. It just needs to get done.
Yeah.
That would be my biggest advice.
And that's why the HSC itself is a milestone. I don't think anyone enjoys doing the HSC, but you grit through it, you push hard, and you know that it will get you to somewhere good. And so it really is, a rite of passage, and just the year 12, year 2, even those students who didn't do a HS or didn't study for ATARs, but still stayed to get their HSC completed. They wanted to be finished and out there working, but now they're at least leaving with that high school qualification that can help them get jobs. So that's extremely important as well.
Oh, very. Like we said earlier in our talk, it's a question of where you're going to begin.
Yeah.
So if you didn't do an ATAR, well, for 2 years, you had a chance to experience things.
Yeah.
Certain trades, other different types of professions. You've got long holidays. Go out there with family and friends. See what they do for work. Join them for a week, free, unpaid.
Yeah.
And just get a taste of the real world and what it's like.
Utilize that time, and then that will obviously bring me to actually another point, because time is money. Okay. And whatever pathway you're picking, finances will be impacting on it too. So you do have to consider that as well with whatever way you go. University costs are higher than ever right now. Okay. And different universities, different costs as well. And one particular angle that I do want to emphasize, and I push it with my students at schools too, you should, if you're passionate about a particular area, look at scholarships, because a lot of young people just see scholarship and nah, I can't get that. They write themselves off without even attempting. And you've got to be in it to win it. And I have had students that have been successful before. And sometimes the scholarship isn't just looking at the ATAR mark. They are looking at the ATAR mark. I won't say they're not looking at it, but they also give marks too for how well you interview and speak and seeing that passion. So you've got to know about that too, to support the financial avenue of whatever pathway you're going for.
100%. Also financial considerations is, well, how much will you be earning in that profession?
Yeah.
That's another big consideration.
Yeah.
I mean, you are getting paid to do work.
Yeah.
And the paid part, whether you consider it or not, is very important. I remember it's one of my job interviews at the bank where the person said, is there anything else you'd want to ask? I actually asked him, are you happy with your pay and how much are you on? I actually asked the interviewer.
And that would have given you great insight. Hey, where are you going?
He was a bit taken back by it, and he was, why? Well, you represent what I can become.
Yeah.
You represent my future.
Yeah.
So it was, and he smiled, and his response was, enough for you to be very happy. He didn't quite tell me, but it's a genuine question. Yeah. And some people get sensitive with asking them for their paycheck, and that's a finance thing. I know places like Macquarie Bank, two people could be doing the same job and could be on vastly different paychecks.
Yeah.
So there can be that little bit of, depending what you negotiated and how much will you get paid. So you got to be careful how you ask how much a person does get paid. But it is very important.
Yeah. And you've actually highlighted something that I guess a lot of young people mightn't even think there too. An interview is a two-way conversation. Yes, they are thinking, is this person good enough to work with us? But you're also getting a feel for what that place is like too. And obviously, Rob, you've got all the confidence in the world,
Actually, I was very nervous.
Yeah. Well, you covered it up well.
I was very nervous, and it just popped into my head to ask him.
But it's a great way to think, because you do want to suss out, if you're going to be giving your time and energy to this place for, a specific income, you want to make sure you're going to be happy, because once again, you're investing your time and effort there. So that is a great point for young people to get a feel for it, because it even makes me reflect. I've had job interviews too, and like some that I was unsuccessful for, I did kind of get a feeling like, what, I probably wouldn't have fit in here. And they did make the right choice.
It was a good thing sometimes when you realize you didn't get the job.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes a person older can see that this may not be right for you. And every job interview is an experience for you to learn. You're not going to get good at a job interview unless you've done a lot of job interviews.
No, that's it. And so once again, put yourself out there too.
You have to.
You have to. Now, the next point for consideration too, and you've got to think this coming out of high school into university too, is work-life balance, because it does get quite unique depending on the pathway you go. Those who do go into the more trade apprenticeships, they're working lots. They're usually the ones that are doing long hours straight away out of high school in order to progress in their apprenticeships. And obviously they accelerate very fast too, and they're being paid. Those going the university pathway, they get their longer holidays depending on the university you're going to, because I've heard about some with trimesters and you don't get as many holidays as you used to.
I think they're stopping it now.
Yeah, I think
they realised they weren't as popular.
But then with that, then they've got to be working part-time as well to obviously assist with paying off their degrees and just to have a social life as well. And then social life, regardless of the pathway you go to, needs to be a factor too, because in relation to being a young independent person out of high school, those 5 years from 18 into your early 20s, that is a time of freedom and learning who you are as an adult too there. And that time, you can't get it back.
Yeah. Let me tell you something about work-life balance.
We're going to get something good here, I think.
When you're at university, that's as good as it's ever going to get. Let me tell you, you think you're busy. You are not. Life's fantastic.
Yeah.
You wake up at 8, 9, maybe 10, miss your lecture, get there at 12, stress out over an assignment that you have to hand in a few days, start it the next day. Work-life balance really doesn't happen till get yourself a partner, get yourself some kids, grab yourself a job, a mortgage, a few bills, and then you realize, wow, I'm very productive with my time. Yeah. So work-life balance at university, it doesn't happen in the real world. No. Enjoy.
So with those points you mentioned, you got to become efficient, quick, and even just what we were saying with goals. When you're in that situation, you start to get conflicting goals, and how do you balance out all those goals?
Well, you just got to harden up, because I've seen it back in time at jiu-jitsu. They're young, they go to uni, they train and train and train, and then I get the excuse, Rob, yes, we need to have a chat. It's hard. I go to work. I'm tired. I don't know if I can make jiu-jitsu anymore. That 40-year-old you were beating down? He's worked, he's tired, he's got kids, and he's here for the last 5 years. Not a good enough excuse. Yeah. So what it is, work-life balance, of course, great. Make sure mentally you are well. Now, if you need to seek professional help, seek it.
Yeah.
But you will get mentally stronger if you take hard things on, chew them down, get through them. Soon as you start thinking, oh, me, I don't know if I'm happy with this, if I'm going to go to something else and make me happy again. Then you go to that other thing. It doesn't solve your problems.
Yeah.
So it's a question of work-life balance is great. When you are picking something hard to do, you're achieving it, and then you find that balance in doing that. Unless you're aiming for something, going for something where you're actually looking at, okay, I'm working full time, and now I need to go back to uni to study.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, the data entry job you had, let's say, at an insurance company, now I'd like to get my business degree, maybe make my way up the ranks. So you're still working full-time at the insurance company and at night getting a degree to further upskill yourself. That's hard.
Yeah. And you're right, because it is often, no matter what pathway you go, it's those times that are transitional that are the hardest, because you are adjusting your work balance in that time. So you'll finish high school and you'll begin uni. Well, you're trying to find a way to firstly understand uni and where all the places are at uni, and then figuring out how to get there and how everything works. Well, it's not necessarily what you're learning that's hard. It's finding logistics and figuring out how that will factor into your life. And then oftentimes, I found with my experience, it's your first year of university that was your hardest. And the same with your apprenticeship too. Often, the first year apprentices have it tough, and you're obviously getting sometimes not necessarily the harder jobs when you're on the job site, but maybe the more tedious jobs that you are trained for on the job site too. And then you getting the balance in your nature of, I've got to get up early mornings and get to this location, pick up this person or pick up this resource. So, it's the adjustment times that are stressful. But then once you've seen it out and seen it through,
it's been proven you are happier grinding it through.
Yeah.
You are a happier person. You're a more well-adjusted person.
Yeah, and it's increased your capacity, and your resilience.
Absolutely. So that's why, back to what we were saying before, whatever you've chosen, see it through to the end of the year.
Yeah.
If you can. This is very important, that you actually see it through. You made that choice, grind it down, and feel free to make another choice. At least you've got the work ethic. You're ready to tackle something else that's hard. Otherwise, you could just find yourself floating through the next 15 years, and then life really gets stressful.
Yeah. And I guess, Rob, that brings us to our next point then of location. And then we do have to think about, okay, we live in a city and we've got multiple tertiary platforms around, whether they be TAFEs and universities. But then also there are people that might live, in remote locations, and they have to move in order to come to those, or vice versa. People want to study something, and it could be in the area of agriculture, and they've got to go out, or there could be a job opportunity, and there are many great job opportunities outside of the main cities. Or if you really want to specialize in a particular area, you might need to go abroad in order to get that particular study that you want and be in the kind of realm, the industry that where it's most successful in the world.
Yeah, location's a big one.
Yeah.
Location's a big one, especially, most people in high school, you could say, are living at home, a very, very high percentage. And then moving out straight away could, unless you are 100% certain, you've had it in your head as your passion from very young. This is the profession, all you've ever wanted to do, and you need to go. I think the most interesting one I ever had was a student wanted to be a fish farmer. And I went, what?
Wow.
Fish farmer. And I went, wait a second. What do you mean fish farmer? What is that? He had to go to Adelaide University.
Yeah.
And I go, are you sure? Yep, 100%. I've always wanted to do that. Now, he was quite driven. He really wanted to do this for a long time. If you're unsure or you just want to try, you're better off living at home and then picking a location that's close.
Yeah.
Because on top of all the other stress of actually starting something new, going from high school into a university environment, moving out of home is that extra added stress that if you can avoid, do, unless you are absolutely certain on that profession that requires that. And that is only something you can decide. But it's something to be careful of, to be very careful of.
Yeah, like it can sometimes be very romanticized of what it'll be, living independently. And it is great. Look, and I'll say right now, I couldn't have done it straight out of high school. No way. I was 17, me out there. And no chance I would have survived, because, and it's also about setting up your life in a way that, you can still build on, what you've got at home. Like, there are just little things you got to look after when you move out. Like, you need to make an income to look after yourself. Washing your clothes, cooking your meals and all that, that's all going to consume finances and all that. And then looking after your study as well and transporting around, and even just having a support network around you of your family to support you during those years. So unless it is a specialized learning or you have to go abroad to get what you need.
That's right. Even location as in, okay, how are you going to get to the institution that you're going to, that you're applying to? You could catch a train and get to Central and go straight into the university. Mm-hmm. Or that's something like UTS or University of Sydney.
Yeah.
But then from, say, where we are to Macquarie University, you've got trains and buses.
Yeah.
So having that transport factor as well is something you need to consider with location.
Yeah.
So location, don't think about just I'm moving out of home, or I'm going to move out of home and have that American college experience.
Yeah.
Because that American college experience.
It's fictional.
Oh, I think I forgot the guy's name. I think I heard him on the internet. A psychologist went, okay, your brain's not developed. You're 18 years old. You're in a dorm full of other 18-year-olds. Mm. Having these parties and this alcohol, at what point do you drop out?
Yeah.
So, I mean, in Australia, we don't have that as much. Most universities are centered around where students live. But then you do have people who live, further out in farms or in small country towns.
Yeah, and then they've got to do it in that instance.
But a small country town person, you have to admit, their kids are a little harder.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more well.
They've probably been working and helping out the family.
Helping out. So you could say they could be a little bit more mature with that.
Yeah.
And they've always known that, okay, I'm going to have to go into the city to study. So the decisions they make can be a bit more serious with impacting the family's income, family having to pay for it, or your study and your everything else. That doesn't mean that us in the city don't take it as seriously. But if your child had no other option and you had to send them to Newcastle to study, you better make sure you're picking something good.
Yeah, and that's right. It's going to enrich their life.
That's right.
You don't think we're just being ethnics and we're going to live at home until we're 40 and, mum and dad will look after us. 35's the line, okay? Then you got to start thinking about getting out of the home, okay? Mum and dad's
Well, I'm
cooking.
born in Australia, so 25's enough.
It is. But look, it is a smart financial and work-life balance decision to stay at home as long as you can. Now, probably the last point I'll try to bring up here too is, you are in year 12, you've got a vision of what you want to do. It's also good just to have your backup plans as well, okay? That backup plan could still be going towards the same tertiary direction, but also thinking across the board as well. Like with myself, I was targeting for teaching, but if I didn't become a teacher, I was actually thinking about being a fireman and getting trained in that way. I was big on my fitness in high school, and I thought that might be a great way to go too. And once again, it was that kind of service area, wanted to help people and think of it like that way as well. So have alternative ways too. But I also was well aware too, there are challenges in being a fireman as well that I would have found challenging for myself and my own nature too there. So it wasn't that I thought one job was better than the other, but then it's what would I be better at doing as well in that decisions there. So have a backup plan.
True. I think in my case, I definitely headed for the police force, for the army.
Yeah.
And then I got the mark and my family just came crashing down on me.
Yeah.
It was like, okay, now you've got a good mark, you're wasting it away, etc., etc. And so that kind of swayed me into other things at university. But like I said before, have a lot of conversations. Have conversations with your family, with your parents, with teachers at school that you like having conversations with. Have a conversation with an older cousin or someone down the street that's at university. Even have a conversation with someone that's retired in your profession.
Yeah.
And that's our goal of the podcast too. That's what we're going to look at, bringing people in for that. But as a young student, welcome to the real world.
Yeah.
It's time for you to do your own research now into the profession that you are interested in. The 3 months out of university isn't about just, going to schoolies and relaxing. This is it. My study is over. I mean, you do relax and maybe get yourself a part-time job, financially support your hobbies, but it is a time for you to do a bit of research on professions. Yeah,
and possible ways you can go. And you've actually already highlighted something that's going to our next part, okay? Before we get into that next part, though, we will pose a quick question, and I'll ask you, Rob, too. Finishing uni, you're a year 12, finishing high school, sorry, you're a year 12 student. What's your view on the gap year?
Daddy's got a trust fund. You're worth millions. You don't really need to work. Stock market's going well. That's fine. You can do uni in a few years' time when you discover yourself. For the rest of us in the real world, I don't recommend it.
No.
You are used to the mechanics of studying. You're used to reading, writing. You've got that built into you. Having that gap year at such a young age, at 18, you really can't do much. First of all, you haven't got the finances, etc. If you do want a gap year, it could be something that you can look at, 3-4 years into your profession.
Yeah.
You could finish university at 20, 21, start working at, say you've got your first career job at 22, 23, say at 26, 27 years old, take 6 months, go work in Germany, go work in Europe, go work in America. Actually, as a professional, do travel. And with your profession, you'll have more money, and you'll see the world in a better way. With a gap year, when you think about an 18-year-old, what are you going to do for a year?
Yeah.
What, are you going to work in a bar somewhere? You're 18 years old. What life experiences do you have?
Yeah.
Like I was joking before, unless you're that wealthy where, your gap year involves, your parents funding $100,000 for you to just travel.
A holiday for
it's
you.
just a one long holiday, and then people like that end up coming out more stressed than when they left anyway.
Yeah.
But usually, don't forget, at university, you've got semesters, you've got breaks in between that semester. If you got a part-time job, you can pay an airline ticket, 10 days, go see Italy. Do a Kentucky tour.
Yeah. Oh, they're the best.
We did a few of them.
That's another episode.
Definitely. But you can slowly travel and see the world. A gap year at such a young age, I wouldn't recommend. But then at university, you can do courses that have international study. I've had students in the past, one did law, and she spent 6 months to a year in Germany. And she's doing really well now in her law degree. So within your actual course, they do offer you overseas study and opportunities to meet other cultures and people and experience that. And you're experiencing it in a more positive way. Even, let's say you don't know what to do. You completely don't know what profession to pick. Support yourself that year. Pick a job.
Yeah.
Get a job.
Dabble.
Support yourself that year in your expenses, your living expenses at home. Work for 3-4 months and then actually go travel to Europe for 6 weeks, come back. But within that 3-4 months that you are working, you need to self-educate, read books, educate yourself, in your own way to know that, okay, I am progressively mentally getting better. There's certain fields that I'm interested in. I'm reading books authors have written. So instead of just, I've got a gap here, I'm going to relax. I'm not going to grab a pen and write. I'm not going to read anything. What are the chances of you going to university or studying after that?
Yeah. You're losing momentum, aren't you?
Yeah.
So, look, I'm on the same page as Rob there too. Like, if I do wear my well-being hat, I can see, you're stressed after the HSC, you deserve a break. And I agree that is the way. Okay. And I think 3-4 months that you get between HSC.
November, December, January, February.
And March is when you start, I think. I think
4
March
months you have.
I think that's enough. Go nuts in those 4 months, reward yourself, you deserve it and all that. But you don't want to lose momentum. And it's not like university is not going to be the same as your HSC year in year 12. As I said, it will be an adjustment. And first year will be tough, once again, finding a balance and all that. But you've been working hard. You want to keep that work ethic going and be ahead of the game. And you said it great too. If you want to travel as a part of your pathway, maybe there is a tertiary pathway where it can be integrated, international internships, ways of learning. That's the way to go about it because, time is finite and you really do want to establish yourself as you can. And I think the other thing to have in your head too is if you are going towards a pathway where you're interested, well, that's part of the journey and part of the fun, and if then, as you said as well, if you then travel after you finish your studies, you can do your profession in potentially a country in the world where, that's the market to be in for that. So if you've studied in film studies or entertainment, you go to over in America and you work in Hollywood, but you've actually got your credentials already. Now you're building connections. It's actually a part of your journey. It's a better way of doing it than going there with nothing and just winging it and seeing where you're going. People take advantage of you in that area.
Oh, you're too young for it anyway.
Yeah.
You're just too young for that.
Yeah, too young and too naive. Keep working. I think it's always going to be a mantra of what we're saying. We've said it a few times in this episode too. You got to grit and you got to work. When times of break come up, enjoy them. Work hard, play hard. I'm a big advocate of that.
Absolutely.
But you've always trying to continually grow and pursue and push yourself in many different directions.
100%. I think we both agree on that.
We're on the same page. We thought we were going to get a debate on that one.
We're going to find something we can debate on.
And I was going to say too, if I had my well-being, but if I have my parent hat on, no way. No way. One of my kids says to me, I want to take a gap year. No, you don't do that. You're going to keep working. You got to.
Which gap am I putting you in? I'll give you a gap year.
100%.
We're going to be careful. This will be on YouTube. They'll be playing back.
They're going to be watching this, and they get the year 12. So what do you think?
Look, it's to travel is nice. Highly recommend it. Get your degree. America will give you a green card.
Yeah.
Go to New York for finance. Work there for a year, make your way to London, build up your experience for another year and a half, 2 years. You may love it there and end up moving there. You may come back to Australia with all that experience and get headhunted by a company here.
Very common in education. People go to England doing work, building up great experiences and coming back. And yes, they do.
Absolutely.
They have their pick of jobs.
And it's very different when you're 22, 23.
Yeah.
To straight out of university as an 18-year-old.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer. You just don't.
Yeah, good. Yeah. Well, then, look, let's then go into our final part we'll kind of talk about in this episode too, and the factors that are going to impact on your choices. And the first one is pretty obvious, and that's academic performance. Okay, so if you're going to go for a specific tertiary pathway that does involve an ATAR or even just a trade pathway that might involve you being at a certain level or going into the police force, the army and all that, there are certain criteria you're going to need to meet. So this is where you're going to plan ahead. You can't make the decision at the end of high school. You need to be thinking about it in your year 11 and 12 years that I've got to work hard for these opportunities. This is the obvious one. I don't know if we need to talk too much of this.
Yeah,
anything you want to say on this?
Well, it goes back to your academic performance is just what you got now with your ATAR. Next year, no one cares.
Yeah, it's
all
true,
done. It's finished. Thank you. Congratulations. You've done very well. Hopefully, school calls you in, take a nice photo. We're very proud of you. We work very hard for you and with you to do that. But what we want to see as teachers is see you take that into some sort of passion, some sort of career. So if you are academically inclined, you can pick a profession that requires that.
Yes.
Now, if you didn't do that well academically, but you still put the effort into study, absolutely, pick any profession you want.
Yeah.
So you could, I've had students in the past, they picked law, but I'm going to go to Western Sydney. Western Sydney, any university, it's all about the marks you get.
Yeah.
So if you're doing law at Western Sydney, you're part of the law society. You're in there with the magazine editors of that law society. You're taking a vested interest in that. You're getting good marks. The professors and the lecturers know you. You're headed for a great profession. You are interested in that profession. So again, it comes back to your level of interest and how much effort you are going to put in. And back to what I said right at the beginning, everything you do in year 12 is an indication of where you are going to begin your studies. So that's something to research over the next 4 months and make sure at that point in time, the decision you have made, that you are going to see it through to the end of the year. Now, don't get me wrong. If situations happen, life happens, medical things happen at home, to yourself, to your family, where you may drop out, or discontinue your studies.
Yeah.
Grab a book and read. Continue educating your brain. Don't just shut it down and think, in 6 months' time, I'll go back to uni. No, you've got 6 months. There's time there for you to look at the profession you were looking at, research it and actually make a better decision or stick with that same decision. But again, everything you do in year 12 is to see where you will begin to study. And I say it again, I say it to all the students. You can begin any profession. And I say, begin any profession. What would you like to do? I've had one person turn around, be an actor. I'll be like, great. Okay, the last 2 weeks, the last 2 years, there's a shopfront theatre in Carlton where you were any plays or productions. Have you been practicing, being on stage? No. You're not interested. He went, what? You're just not interested in that, So pick any profession, And I've seen people actually go from nursing into medicine, but they were passionate with that. Actually, a friend of mine in high school did that. He stressed his brains out. His ATAR mark did not represent the effort he put in. I think it was the stress of him, having to achieve to become a doctor. And he ended up getting in the 70s, done an arts degree, transferred into medicine, and he runs pretty successful now, runs a whole clinic in Campbelltown.
Wow.
As a medical doctor. But he always had that passion to become a doctor. And so then the funny thing, you don't need to be smart to be a doctor.
But you got to have grit.
You just got to grit it down. For everything else, it's not an IQ test where we turn around and go, sorry, mate, IQ's too low. You can't do that. It's not like that. So have that in mind and pick something and grind it through. And that's when it comes into, what are your expectations? And obviously, they'll be influenced by your families.
And look, one thing I wanted to say as well with that academic thing, because you raised a whole lot of really good points there too. HSC ATAR mark, it is. No one's ever going to look at it again after you get that. Once you get into university or you don't, okay? It is made for that year as a way of measuring whether you qualify, and they change year to year too. I want to stress too, from that wellbeing avenue too, it isn't a reflection of your IQ or your intelligence. It is really just assessing how well did you study in your HSC year and how well you are at reading books and doing exams. And that doesn't mean you're intelligent or not intelligent. We all have different strengths and learn in different ways and show our skills in different ways too. So never feel discouraged by the fact you don't get the ATAR that you might have been hoping for initially to get into that workforce that you wanted to go, or that career pathway you wanted to go to too. And you said it great with that example too, that people have then, got a particular ATAR. And then, they did an arts degree and then they've transferred over and they found their way there too, because once again, the foundation is interest and passion.
Absolutely.
So if you've got that, people will see it and you'll still find your way there. And even if it is that you're doing a lot of, ways of dabbling in that industry, like you said, going down and doing in plays and going into different areas, or just work experience in different areas, and then using that 3 years between high school and going into university as a mature age, that's still viable too, if it means you're actually preparing yourself as best you can once you do get to that point too, because you know that certain exams aren't the way to go, that isn't your skill level. So just keep that in mind. There's always other ways of getting there, and the ATAR isn't a reflection of your intelligence, it's just how good you are at exams. Okay, so never be discouraged by that, but it is a tool for obviously getting to certain
and be careful, if you get a high ATAR, and you don't like the course you've picked, do not fail those subjects. Because then all of a sudden, when they recalculate your ATAR, it's not that high anymore. It's another thing to be careful of.
So then you've obviously just touched on the next point that we're going to go to too, and you actually brought it up a bit just before too. Another impact on the direction you might go is family expectations. And this can be twofold, okay? There is kind of like, you've been working hard. We know you're strong academically. Okay, go on to this pathway. Expect you to go to university no matter what. That is a common discussion that happens in many families that I've seen. Okay, sometimes it is to provide moral support and really push their children to go the best way they can. But sometimes as well, they're working against the grain. That young person knows they don't want to go to university. The study and structure of academic pathways is not for them. They want to be working, whether it be an apprenticeship or just going straight into a job too. So family expectations can be twofold. I'll pass it over to you, Rob, but there is more I want to say about that as well.
Look, as a parent, you stress over your child.
Always. You never stop.
So you always want the best. You want to push them for them to do their best. But that's great. But now you're finishing year 12. You're turning 18. Yes, you're very young, but you make that decision. Now, your family can put their expectation on you. Family can put that pressure on you, but they are not sitting those exams. They're not going to university. They may have gone to university themselves and had a great time. Doesn't mean you will. Now, this is the time into adulthood. You're making that decision. Now, of course, there are biases, there are influences, there are people that will strongly advise you. But at the end of the day, you made that decision.
Yeah.
And family, as much as they love you and they want the best for you, and obviously do listen to what they say. It's not a question of just, being that rebel and bouncing against what your family is saying. There are a lot of pearls of wisdom there that you do need to take into consideration. But make your choice, grind it through, and if you do need to change your mind, change your mind. It's great. You could change your mind. We've had teachers change their mind in their 40s. I was speaking to a science teacher where you work, the school I used to previously work at. She got a PhD in political science, and she lectured at university. She turned around and went, always wanted to be a science teacher.
Yeah.
And she did that in her 40s. This is a lecturer with a PhD that was working at university that wanted to be a science teacher. And you can change your profession. But if you have that work ethic, you can grind things down and do hard things. Whatever you change, you have a higher chance of being successful at. That is the one thing I cannot stress enough. You can look up at the research. You can talk to psychologists that will probably spell it out for you a lot better. That is the one thing I want you that has to come across from this. Pick whatever you're going to pick, grind it down, see it through to the end of the year as successfully as you can. Put the effort in. Attend your lectures. Attend your tutes. Don't think university is there for you to just sleep in 3 days, then catch up and just hand a piece of paper in that they pass you. I mean, this is something that I say to the young maths teachers that come in, as I've mentioned it before in the past. While you're at university, get your notes together for what you'll be teaching in mathematics or your subjects.
Yes.
That's being a professional. That's getting yourself ready, and you can do that for all other fields. Whether it be, let's say, pick a field, computing. With computing, I mean, you've got a 3-month break. Practice your programming.
Yeah.
It's not something that it's an education institution. All you have to do is pass and then get a job.
There's so many tools out there too. There's so many ways
absolutely,
to get online things are available.
You're an adult now.
Yeah.
Your job is your profession. You need to actually get yourself skilled up. So the break you do have at university, it's a break from university, not educating yourself. If you want to be a psychologist, well, you're studying psychology, your 3-month break should be you reading journal articles on your interest in psychology. So by the time university starts, you're writing an essay, you've read 30, 40 journal articles that you're ready to put into your essay with references, et cetera, et cetera. That's just a profession I just picked at the top of my head.
Yeah. But look, you've actually highlighted something really good there too as well. In relation to your family expectations, show your passion. If there's a certain direction you're going to go, utilize your time and show your passion about a pathway that potentially your parents may be skeptical on. If you show you're passionate, they will support you because obviously they love you more so than anything. They just want to see that you're going to be okay. The one thing I want to say too, though, is respect your parents' opinion too. They've lived their lives and their experiences, and there is a reason they might be saying for you to go a particular pathway. While you don't want to believe it as a teenager, they know your skills, your passions, your work ethic, and are possibly guiding you to a particular way where they think you might be more suitable, but also potentially a particular pathway where they feel they can help you more. It could be that you are working for a family business, which is obviously very common, and you're very lucky to have that opportunity if it is available too. Or it could just be they work in that particular sector, they have connections, or they feel they can give you their experience and look after you better. They're actually great assets to have. So don't just be defiant to your parents' perspectives either, because they probably are coming from a very good point and are really trying to help you as well the best they can there too. So I think there's also a positive that you should try to listen to. But then as you said, Rob, as well, if you want to go an alternate pathway, show it. Show that's your passion.
Prove them wrong. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it don't just fight against the system. People go, that's it. I'm fighting against the system.
And actually,
what are you fighting for?
Yeah. And one other thing you said there too as well, actually I forgot as well. If you do feel like you need support and that, well, that's where your teachers can come into it too. Marks dictate things, and if you are thinking about a particular pathway as well, oftentimes you can have like a meeting in relation to careers with your careers coordinator at school or with your leaders of wellbeing at school too, that your parents can come to as well. And you can have kind of a bit of a round table to discuss potential pathways you could be taking beyond high school when it is kind of out of your parents' comfort zone as well. And it's good for parents to know this too, because the careers coordinator can often know what is the pathway that will help you as a young person get to that area that is kind of secure and safe and is the professional way to go to. So accessing resources is also very important in that circumstance as well.
As soon as you step out of school, you're actually educating yourself with actually what profession will you have as well. So do take your parents' advice seriously into consideration.
Yeah, of course.
Especially if you're unsure about what to do.
Yeah.
It can sway you towards what they are saying, and they do create a lot of merit in that. But then you also need to do your own research, especially with the job market conditions, cultural and social trends. This is something with the teachers that we had to go through pay rises.
Yeah.
I just started into the profession, but I
came at a good time.
Came at a
very good time, Rob.
Even then, the pay isn't quite on par with what you'd get as a professional.
Yeah.
So
unions will keep fighting it.
Unions will keep fighting.
Yeah.
But it is one of those conditions, and do speak to people who are in that profession.
Well, look, that's a great point, Rob. You have just come in, and obviously there has been a bit of industrial action on it. And one of the main reasons as well that we started this podcast too is to promote education as an industry. Right. And you said it, we want to get to a level where it is more respected in society on the level in relation to other industries that are out there, and we see it in other countries. When education is respected, everyone thrives. Okay, the utopian society, education is a foundation.
Well, but then to make a profession respected, pay does play a factor. I can tell by the students that I've been tutoring, that I had in class in front of me for Extension 1, Extension 2 maths, none of them put their hand up to be maths teachers.
Yeah.
Now, it is something I embedded into them. I told them the positives of the job. They can, later on in their career, change over into that, have another business on the side, could be a stockbroker, you could be trading for yourself and then coming to the market as a teacher for having that, intrinsic reward. But, job market conditions, pay does dictate the job market conditions.
And there's another side to that as well. Obviously, the pay is a factor too. Yeah. But then on another note too, and obviously we're teaching right now at the moment, where are the jobs? And I always say when I started teaching, there wasn't much job availability, and you really had to, do a lot of casual at different schools, and they won't give you a full-time contract, and it was very tough. Whereas now, because there is a shortage, graduates are coming out, like they're not actually even coming out. They're getting scalped in their fourth year to be working at schools right now because there is a shortage. So there is a lot of job security when you do come into
absolutely. I haven't even got a resume.
You haven't even, and people are grabbing you all over.
It was one of those things where, I did my prac there, a friend of mine worked there, came as a casual, I had a job in a month.
Yeah.
Without even handing in a resume. And then the same thing with the school I'm at now. Principal sent me a text message, my daughter goes there, had a 2-hour chat with him about everything else that I do outside the college, and off you go. So with the market that's available now as a teacher, if you're a good teacher, you could literally pick where you want to work.
Yeah.
Literally, the shortage is I've had people that train with me in jiu-jitsu, they've had to take time off for their honeymoons in public schools, and they've collapsed their classes. So literally can't get anyone to actually take the class, even casuals or any other teachers. And I'm not sure if it's improving, but it is quite dire.
Yeah, I think it is improving. I am starting to see more prac students starting to come in school and all that. But, and I also want to mention too, and I'm not just talking about teaching, you should have your eye on whatever I pick, will there be jobs when I leave? Like that's the point we're really trying to make. We are experts in the area of education. But 4 years might sound like a long time, but it takes that 4 years to have an applicant that can fill that position too. So if you're thinking that, oh, look, the jobs will all be taken up by the time I finish uni, well, probably most likely not. Okay, the way the data is looking, like, yeah, you got to get
you will. Is it getting better?
I think it is, and the pay has improved as well. Okay, so hopefully that's attracting more people to it.
Oh, we want more. That's the whole point of the podcast. We want to attract more people into the profession, but every teacher we've had here has said, okay, I'm not going to get rich doing this, but these are the benefits.
And they love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
They love it. And, you've seen as our audience, their passion too. And that brings us back to our first point. You've got to be passionate and interested in the pathway
for
to do.
teaching, I believe you're a born teacher.
Yeah.
You're just naturally born for it.
Yeah. You know it.
Yeah, you know it straight away.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's just in you. You at high school, anywhere else, you've taken sports, you've coached them, you've helped tutor kids, etc. And it's just something inside you that drives you into the job. Mm. So if you have got that in you, yep, definitely. Try teaching. You can also do tutoring as well to supplement that income.
Mm-hmm. That and LSOs too, when you're at uni too and getting a bit of experience.
Absolutely.
Find out if you like it that way too. But look, on that front with teaching, we'll keep fighting the good fight on that front.
We're here and we're going to but we have to make the positives with the negatives as well.
Yeah.
So, but in teaching, you do have that spare time when you do get spare time to actually do supplement your income with other things.
Yeah, and so it can be extremely viable too, fitting into your work-life balance there as well, okay? But yeah, make sure that whatever pathway you pick, the job opportunity will be there after you, okay? Because you don't want to have, and we've probably heard stories of people who have done specific degrees, they finish, what are they going to work as now?
That's right. But here's something for you. I'm going to ask you, what about technology and automation?
Look.
What's happening there?
That is a very big factor you got to think about because obviously we are in this transitional state with industry. Okay, mechatronics is on the rise, okay, which means we have a lot of robotics and automated systems coming into workplaces, manufacturing workplaces, but not just manufacturing, into many workplaces too. They're even showing building sites where they've got, robots helping with the building of the walls and all that too. So you've got to plan ahead now that you could be heading to a job that might not be done the same way as it is currently now. Okay, with AI, once again, combining with mechatronics, things are changing in particular industries. So keep that in mind. One of the most popular degrees that, that I've seen many people passionate about, graphic design, it is one that is changing rapidly at the moment. Now, it's not dire that, graphic designers are gone, but AI now is a part of graphic design. That is just the way it is. So you've got to build your skills in AI. Okay, if you're going to be a good graphic designer now, you've got to factor in that I need to know that tool. It's not just going to be my raw drawing now, which still at its most purest form, you will do your raw drawings. Okay, but you'll be factoring in AI into that too. So industry is changing. Be on top of that. And I saw it with my father too. Okay, my father is a fantastic draftsman. Okay, old school, by hand, drawing board, hours drawing. It's an art form. If you've ever seen someone do it by that, you're an artist, designing houses, putting these plans together, these blueprints of something that doesn't even exist yet. AutoCAD comes along, that type of software. There goes that skill. That skill is gone. Now, in my father's instance, he retrained and learned how to use AutoCAD, was able to apply his skills in that area, and was still able to do his work.
You still can't beat his experience.
No, you can't beat it. And even with the technology too, he was amazing because he had that experience behind him too. In the computing area, we call that the changing nature of work. You've just got to be prepared to change in your career with the technological upgrades that will come a part of it, okay? So just keep that in mind too about the pathway that you're going to do that. If technology is a factor, or even if technology isn't a factor yet, it's probably going to become a factor.
It will be.
It will be, and you really do have to adapt to it. If you're going to think long-term with your career, okay, you want to use it.
Oh, it's one of those things that you're constantly learning. Whatever career you pick, you have to constantly be learning.
Yeah.
And like you mentioned and hit the nail on the head, technology and automation will be a part of that. And you can probably, like you said, it will probably even come into teaching.
Yeah. That's it. Hopefully they can discipline the kids for us. Get a
Hit the button.
T1000 in the class, mate. Yeah. Gotta sort the kids out.
Oh, that'll be good. Well-being.
Yeah.
Go see the T1000.
That's it. And look, and I guess that brings us to our last point then as well. Factors are going to impact on your career, and it is health and well-being too. We do have this idea of hustle culture, and that you're going to work, 18 hours a day and make your $1 million and get your Bugatti and all that too. But it's not realistic, because you're going to become people with a family, and family is important. Your physical health is important. Things we've spoken about before, how to become the total package, to be healthy, you need to assign time to that too. So that's kind of the final factor we've got to think, I think, here.
Oh, look, your health and well-being drives you. Think of it like a car. You're going to drive the car around Australia, but you're not going to service it. You're not going to take care of it.
Yeah.
And this is where I see a lot of people making that mistake. They're driving their car. If your left wheel is squeaky, how long do you keep driving it for?
Yeah.
You take it to the mechanic straight away. But you may let your knee go.
Yep.
That's okay. I need to work. Yeah, do work. Then book the time in to see the physio. Physio gives you exercises. Get them done.
Yeah.
I mean, nothing is more important than your health and well-being. That's what allows you to grind things down. That's what allows you to do things that are hard. So if you take care of that first, you will become productive.
Yeah.
Once your health and well-being goes, you can push against the wall as hard as you like. Eventually, it all comes tumbling down. So and on our show, we are going to bring people in, nutritionists, physiotherapists in, psychologists in, to actually get us bit more informed in that. But back to health and well-being, make it your number one thing, not in a selfish way.
Yeah.
In a way that, okay, just progressively, it just gets better.
Yeah.
So if you've got that gym membership, just turn up 3 times a week.
Yeah.
Actually put it into your schedule as part of your work schedule. Well, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday morning, I go to the gym, I shower there, then I go to work. And once you put it into the schedule as part of what you do for work, you will more than likely get it done. If you're always, well, I'm tired when I get back from work, do it in the morning. If you need to see I've had, good friends of mine where I've gone, oh, what should I eat? See a dietitian, a professional, someone that will actually show you what you need to do, give you a blood test, get you moving onto that healthy, onto that healthy path. And it's not really a healthy path. It's just you slowly bettering yourself. So you can perform, you can work hard, and you can grind things down and do the things that are required of you. There's nothing worse than being unhealthy in a way that makes you non-productive. It doesn't matter how much you mentally try and push past that, you've always created that barrier of being unhealthy. Now, we're not asking people to be super athletes, but that small percentage increase. They say increase 1% per day. That's too much. 1% a day is a ridiculous amount to increase when you compound that over the whole year. Mate, 1% per month. 1% per month increase will see a dramatic increase in your health, your well-being, your productivity, and then you will have that energy to actually work harder. Yeah.
That's right. Do something that actually, supports you in your working and your actual pathway too. And, we mentioned it as well as that being a part of your HSC study plan, that you factor in health and all that, because it is something that you want to maintain after the HSC. And when you do go into your tertiary pathway or into your career too, if you are going to have a healthy life too. Look, we can have many goals in life. We've got goals for success and finance and family goals and that. Second, you end up in a hospital, you've only got one goal. Okay, right. One goal.
All right, to get out of the hospital.
Yeah, to get out of the hospital. So you've got to make sure that whatever you pick, that you factor in, that you can maintain a healthy lifestyle with that pathway too.
And just slowly improve. There's no rush in that.
No.
It's just like, I think I've mentioned it before, compulsively we mentioned if you're eating something bad, just chuck it.
Yeah.
Have
the chocolate, I remember.
The chocolate, remember that one. But bin it. But we will look into that further, into our further topics. We did look at our past topic on sleep. That's a big one that you should go back and really, really look into, because that's the pillar of your health. And yeah, we look forward to inviting our other guests on.
That's it. I know
Are they
some
on
experts.
season 4 or?
They'll be next season, I think. That'll be next season. Yeah, they'll be
season.
coming to join us too. This season, we'll be continuing on with our teachers at different stages of their career, which we'll be following up on next week.
Yeah, actually, really excited to have them. We had one early teacher on already, beginner teacher. So what we've got in store, we'll have a newly proficient teacher. We'll bring a teacher in mid through their career, and I think they're mid through their career as well as they're quite high up in their promotion, and then we'll have a very experienced teacher come in. So you can see, do you relate to them? We can bring you into our profession, and do you like what they're talking about? So hopefully we can get you into the teaching role.
That's it. Hey, we're all in it together, aren't we, Rob?
Absolutely.
Education. Excellent.
Okay, thank you again for listening to us. We are getting quite better at this.
We're doing all right, We're getting long. I'm just looking at the timer here. Hey, the banter's going well.
Yeah.
We should also throw out a thank you to Kate, who's getting our lovely new cups.
Absolutely. Look at this.
That. She's ching ching.
So what's in this?
That's we won't talk about that right now. Okay. Water. It's water.
It's clear stuff. No, just kidding. Thank you again. And if you've been following us, what was it again?
Like, share, subscribe, add a comment.
Give us a comment. Anything positive stuff, anything else that maybe topics that you would like us to touch on, any sort of guests that you would like us to call upon, or anything that interests you, please comment in the comment section, and we'll try hard to bring that to fruit.
Sounds good, eh?
Yep.
Thank you very much, everyone. I'm Chris Kaladikis.
And I'm Robert Namoski.
Have a great night, everyone. See you later.
Bye.